I'm rolling with FD.
I am rolling with FD.
I'm rolling with FD.
I'm rolling with FD, baby.
We are rolling with FD.
I'm rolling with FD.
We got alphas and bros in the house.
That's right.
Peace out, my brother.
Woo!
I'm rolling with the F to the D.
Learn something new every day when you're rolling with FD.
We are rolling with FD, baby.
I roll with one person, and that's FD.
I'm rolling with FD, baby.
You
I
gotta
love
love
it,
it,
man.
man.
Hey, Renee, who you rolling with?
Rolling with FD.
Hey, Matt.
Rolling with FD.
You don't have to ask. I'm rolling with FD.
My man, C. Bless. Who you rolling with?
I'm rolling with FD.
I'm rolling with FD.
That's how you just rolling, right? That's the whole thing, right? You roll with it.
I'm rolling with FD.
Manny and Jeremy, who you rolling with?
We're rolling with FD. We don't want to get our asses kicked.
My man, Dan, the card man. I appreciate you, dog. You gotta let the people know who you rolling with.
Well, obviously I'm rolling with FD.
I'm rolling with FD, baby.
Jason Cardboard is rolling with FD.
Rolling with FD.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How we doing out there? It's Tuesday. There's a lot going on in the world of sports. But I have a special guest here that I've been wanting to talk to for quite a while now to learn more about him and his card shows. We have Dan from the Front Row Card Show here. Let me bring him in. What's going on, Dan?
I'm good.
How you doing, sir?
I'm wonderful. Working hard.
All right. That's good. Good to hear. Let me jump into. I want to ask you. Tell us the story behind how the Front Row Card Show started. How did it begin?
Well, first of all, I'm a collector and a vendor of. For me, it's mostly vintage cards, and looking for good shows. And I had experience organizing shows when I was young, so I just decided that who better to organize a good show than me, and so that drew me back into organizing card shows.
And how long has the card show been running?
We started in 2022, so it hasn't been that long, but we've organized a lot of shows already, and we've built up quite a following. We've got a lot of really loyal attendees and vendors, and we've built a really strong community around collecting.
And what are some of the locations? I know you're here in Pasadena.
Yeah.
I know you're in Vegas.
That's right. And we started in Vegas. That's where we started doing our first shows. Mm-hmm. And we just started with really large crowds, and it's just taken off. And then, frankly, we're following our vendors. Our vendors are telling us, hey, we need a show here. So, Dan, come run a show in Pasadena. So we started organizing shows in SoCal. And then now we're doing shows also in Phoenix. And coming in August will be our very first show in Seattle.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you, man.
I know you just talked about vendors giving you feedback. What other things do you hear from vendors about your show or things they want to see at your show?
Well, it's an interesting question. We get people asking for different things, but mostly people are just giving us positive feedback on what we're doing. Occasionally we get requests for different things. But our vendors are generally really happy with our shows, and so are our attendees. So really, I think for us, it's about massaging the details, because we're really good at bringing big crowds. We're really good at creating a good attendee experience. We try to balance a very eclectic mix of vendors so that the attendees have a fun experience. There's something for everybody, So, there's so many different types of vendors out there. And we think that one of the great things about shows is the discovery of great things that you weren't even looking for. Like when you go to a show and you're looking for one thing, but then you stumble across other things, that just makes it a better experience for you as you may see something. I didn't even know I wanted that until I saw it, but now I have to have that. That's part of what being a collector is about.
Very true. I know you talked earlier about the expansion as far as locations. Give everyone a little bit of information about how you decide what additional cities you want to go into. What are some of what's the thought process like?
Well, generally it's going places where there's a need for us, meaning the shows that are there aren't strong enough or fun enough or good enough or whatever the word is, or maybe infrequent enough. Maybe there's not enough shows. We try to bring a certain type of show. We don't do little shows. We don't do like 50 table, 60 table shows. And there's a place for that in the hobby. Everybody in every community, I think it's always good to have, monthly shows. And there's a place for that. There's a place, a community for that, where people know they can go to the show and it'll always be there every month. And that's great. But we bring pretty good sized shows. Our shows, they start at 150 tables. We're up to 340 tables in Vegas. And, we could have easily sold 500 tables at our last show, but we don't push the limit of size because we want the show to be really strong for the vendors. So we don't want to be in a situation where we're selling too many tables, just selling tables. We don't do that. So, we're very proud of the fact that we create a good balance of a big crowd for the size of the room.
So let me ask you a question here. And this is something that just came to my mind. So I'm gonna word it the correct way because I'm thinking about the future of shows.
Yes.
You've been to the National.
Yes.
And I'm gonna say this. I'm not getting you to say it. Some people say the National is outdated. They want to see more exciting stuff at the National. They want to be more like a Comic-Con or other events that they've been to. What are some things that you see that may be on a horizon in the future as far as car shows that may be innovative or different, or some things you've thought about?
That's a good question. It's funny. People are always looking for ideas on how to enhance shows, and that comes up a lot. I want to start with the fact that I love the National. I think the big appeal of shows in general is the deal making and the discovery. Mm-hmm. Everybody loves the in-person. If you're a genuine collector, you enjoy the process of negotiating deals, finding things, and that's the draw. You can't do that any other place other than an in-person show. Online, I guess you can make offers for things on eBay and things like that, but it's not the same. There's something about the personal engagement of negotiating deals and finding deals. And
I agree.
And that, I think, is the biggest appeal of shows, is the finding of things and the negotiating of deals. And I that's going to be core, I think, for any show. The rest of the stuff, I think, is a matter of, providing things that enhance the experience so it's not just one thing. So, for example, at our last show in Vegas, we had some educational workshops. And the idea was we really work hard to grow the hobby. I think you'll find at our shows that we bring a lot of people that are new to the hobby into our shows. And we also bring a lot of people who maybe were in the hobby years ago. Maybe they haven't collected for 10, 20, 30 years, but they stumble across our show and then they come out, and then they're like, oh my God, I remember I used to collect, Ken Griffey Jr. or whatever it is, Wade Boggs or whatever athlete from the 80s or 90s or whoever. And now they're drawn back into it. So I want for the hobby to grow. I think you've got to bring new people into the hobby, and you've got to do a good job of getting people that were in the hobby, and maybe they're even nostalgic about it from their childhood, get them back into the hobby, because it's easy to get them back into it if you give them the opportunity. So one of the things we did at our last show is we actually had these workshops teaching people how grading works. If you've been out of the hobby forever, or if you're new to the hobby, we all know that grading is a big part of the hobby now.
True.
So it's really important to make sure that new people or returning people understand how it works, what grading is all about, what it means, what to get graded. You don't want. It would be really frustrating if a person that maybe they collected when they were young or not, and they come to a show and they decide, I'm going to get 100 cards graded. Well, what if they send in 100 cards and 85 of them are base cards or, commons, and they shouldn't have been graded at all because you're spending $15-20 a card to get graded. And even if you get a good grade on it, it's worth $12. It's like, that's a bad grading decision. Mm-hmm. So, it's about teaching people how grading works and what that's all about. And then we also teach people how technology is used in the hobby. For example, using different platforms for comparing prices. And so that way you're not as a collector going to get ripped off. Now, whether that's a graded card, an ungraded card, Waxstat, Al, one of our friends, he does a platform that even shows you the value of unopened boxes. Mm-hmm. So there's a number of different platforms out there that are really useful, and nobody likes getting a bad deal, right? So if it's a new person in the hobby or a returning person, one of the early things you got to teach them is how to evaluate the value of cards, and showing them shortcuts. Because if they say, well, on eBay, that's worth $1,000. Well, no, that's what somebody's asking. If you look at the last 5 sales of that item, it's $225. If somebody's asking $1,000, it doesn't mean it's worth $1,000. So these are the type of things that I think for the hobby to grow, you've got to teach, beginning collectors. So I would even say at the National, it'd be really good to see things that are more like that at the National. I think, breaking is obviously prevalent these days, and that's a big part of the hobby. I think as more and more people are breaking, it's getting competitive out there. So I think that's actually good for collectors. It might not be good for the breakers because the margins are going down, because if a bunch of people are doing the breaking, then they're going to go with either whoever's cheapest or whoever's got the best personality or the best show, because a lot of people are loyal to that because they're like, hey, this guy might not be the best price on breaking, but I really enjoy basically the broadcast of the break. It's fun, So that's interesting in the hobby. And I'm really impressed with what they're doing at Cards HQ. With their live in-store selling, I think is a new thing they're just adding. Obviously, Rob at Burbank Sports Cards is always doing great things and always looking to improve the hobby. And I think overall, we're going to continue seeing things. You see with people like Magpie and Mascot are trying to do some things in live shows to help people find cards at the shows. I think it remains to be seen whether or not collectors at a live show will do that. Maybe after they walk around, they can't find what they're looking for, then maybe they'll use those tools to find what they're looking for. I think, again, for at shows, a lot of people suggest autograph guests, but that's a whole different animal.
It really is.
It is, and I struggle with it, to be candid. It's we get opportunities. In fact, we get autograph guests occasionally brought by some of our vendors bring autograph guests.
Yes.
I have had autograph guests at my shows years ago. In fact, right behind me, where is it? This side, right here behind me is a show I did that we had a bunch of autograph guests. But it's a tough thing, because when people say they want to go to a show with autograph guests, it's a kind of a random thing. And then you show them who you got, and they're like, they're not for me. It's like, all right, well, I tried to bring some autograph guests, but, and they certainly can be a draw, but I struggle with whether or not that's even necessary to show. We've been very successful with big crowds, so I don't need to bring an autograph guest as a draw. I just don't. Our shows are really strong already.
And I just know logistically, I've collected autographs since I was 13 years old. Just logistically, it's a totally different animal than a card show. The card show has its own challenges, as you know. But to then bring in a certain section, take away footage from the tables that you may have people go through those lines, entertain the guests, because most of these athletes want to be entertained themselves. It is not easy.
Right. Well, and autograph collectors aren't necessarily card collectors.
They're not.
No.
And if you go to the National, I see people when I go over to the Pavilion, when I used to go, that never went to the card side and vice versa. They're not. Yeah.
Right. I maybe I'm a little bit of a purist. I enjoy a card show, and I'm happy if there's autograph guests, but it's not a required thing. I'm more concerned about the collector that's, genuinely there for the show itself.
Do you find yourself visiting other shows to see kind of what others are doing or what different markets are like?
Of course. I'm a vendor. I buy and sell vintage cards. I'm at every show as often as I can. Yeah, and I'm always around. And I enjoy being a vendor at shows. I genuinely love it. I enjoy being around the hobby. I enjoy engaging with collectors. I enjoy buying and selling and engaging with other vendors. I just enjoy the process, and I have for, since I was a kid, so it comes for me from an authentic place. So for our shows, we're trying to create shows that I would enjoy as both a vendor and an attendee. And that's what we replicate.
So I'll say this. I've been to Front Row Card Show. Your vendors that I've talked to are customer service oriented. Sometimes you can go to a show and the vendors are not really interested in talking to a person or negotiating with them. They don't engage the person at the table. They don't get up. I haven't seen that stuff at your show. What are some things that you do to make sure that you have individuals that are vending that are customer service oriented?
I love that question. Look, we do our best to influence our vendors to make it a better experience for attendees, because that's really what it's all about. If we don't do a good job as an event organizer, and our vendors don't do a good job of, because they're the front lines, they're engaging directly with the collectors. Yes. And if they're not doing a good job of, creating a good experience for the attendees, then that's not in anyone's best interest. You want attendees having a good experience and coming back every time we do another show. So to your question specifically, we communicate with our vendors several principles. We tell them, look, be good to the attendees, talk to them, engage with them. We actually tell our vendors, stand up, be eye level, have a conversation at eye level with attendees versus sitting at your table on your phone, minding your own business. And then a collector comes over and says they want to see something in a case. It looks like it's bothering you. Nobody likes to see a vendor that's like, am I inconveniencing you to try and buy a card from you? And you don't want to ask them, so we communicate with our vendors about certain things we like to see. And these are things I think help them. I mean, I genuinely think by giving them a couple of these suggestions, it helps them have a better show, even as a vendor. So, I'm glad that you recognize that without, me saying anything, but we really do try to encourage our vendors to be more engaged and be nice and give collectors a fair deal, especially green collectors.
Yeah, I knew there was something because as I walked, I was engaged. People were talking to me. I want to ask you a question. I know you have shows coming up. The National is coming up. Burbank has a show coming up. Fanatics announced that they're going to have an event on the East Coast. Right. And then they came out and announced that they're going to have, I think they put out a schedule of what cities they're going to be in. I guess the question I have is, how do you think those events are going to impact the shows that we have seen in the past now that Fanatics has jumped into the pool?
Well, they're welcome to jump in the pool. I'm happy to have them involved. I know EJ, and it's, I think that a Fanatics is genuinely looking to grow the hobby. And I think that is a noble endeavor. And I think that is something that is in everyone's long-term best interest. And if they're working to grow the hobby, then, rising tides lift all boats. Yes. So I think that that's good for everybody. I'm glad they're doing what they're doing, and I encourage them to keep doing what they're doing. And I invite them to, come to our shows and use our shows to promote their shows. Mm-hmm. I invite that all the time. I tell other promoters, come to our shows, bring flyers, let people know about your shows. Because if all shows are flourishing, then vendors are happy, attendees are happy. And I think, if collectors are going to shows, then they're engaged in the hobby. The worst thing that can happen is if collectors go to a show every now and then give up on the hobby. So, I'm not going to do shows every week. It's just not going to happen. We're quarterly in every market we're in, quarterly. And I'm not going to do it more frequently in each market. In every market we're in, we want other organizers organizing shows, and I want them to succeed in that market, because that means collectors are engaged and they're actively going to shows. And then that's good for everybody.
So I go to some shows, just asking at a high level. I go to some shows and you see moderate foot traffic. But when I've seen videos from front row card shows and when I've showed up myself, we talked about earlier, a lot of foot traffic. Why do you think people that are interested in cards see your show as that place that they must attend, must come out, must see?
Well, first of all, we work very, very hard on marketing. We promote our shows harder than anybody else, I promise you. The other thing I think we do is we have a level of positivity that we create in our environment that creates really good experiences, and that creates return visits. And I think the combination of those things is what separates us from other shows.
Okay. I can see it. The atmosphere is opening, welcome. We came into Pasadena, we were greeted by the people that were at the front of the show, talking to us and asking us if we had any questions. You have created something that's a very positive vibe.
Thank you.
Walking to, and I'm being genuine. I think people know me. I don't make things up. I'm very genuine about what I'm saying.
Right.
We came in. We came in as a family, and it was very welcoming.
Yep. By the way, we have a fantastic team, FD. We have a really good team, and there's a lot of things that we do that it's a culmination of lots of little details that really, add up to creating a front row card show experience.
Well, I was DMing you and letting you know I was out this weekend, went to a show, bumped into one of your people. I had a great conversation with her.
Yep.
At a totally different show. She broke down things to me about the upcoming show. I think in May, correct?
Yes.
Yes, in May. She told me
May 18, 19.
Yes, May 18th and 19th. It was a pleasant experience talking to her, and she was welcoming of a conversation. And I think people out there should know that when you go to a front row show, those are the kind of interactions you have, not only with the people up front that are getting you into the show, taking your ticket, talking to you, answering your questions, as well as when you walk the show. It's a very positive vibe.
Well, thank you. I genuinely appreciate that. I really do, because that's something we take great pride in. And I think that, again, that's one of the things that separates us is that, we're not going to brush you off as an attendee. We're very good in terms of customer service to both our attendees and our vendors. So, we do everything we can to make the show a great experience.
Speak to me a little bit more about how your expansion in Seattle. How did you determine that Seattle was that place to go?
We had several vendors tell me that they said, Dan, Seattle needs front row card show. Okay. And so I did some homework, and I've traveled up there now a couple times, and I will be going up there a lot more to spread the word about what we're doing and bring awareness about our show and build relationships. And, it's just one of those things where we recognized that Seattle is underserved. It's a great market, and Portland is too. Portland's nearby. So people from Portland will drive up, and Tacoma's close. There's great markets up there, and there's big crowds, big sports fans. There's people there with money, and there wasn't any show in town that is as big and as strong as Front Row Card Show. So we decided, well, we know Seattle's a great market, so if the market's being underserved, we're going to come and help, and we're going to be there to help grow the market.
Can you speak to if I was a person that was desiring to create a show and I wanted some advice on what things I should do and maybe stay away from, what advice would you give that person?
Don't take anyone for granted. That's number one. I would say also you need to come from an authentic place. I think there's a number of promoters that are out there that are takers as opposed to givers to the hobby. And, they're trying to take advantage of, there's nothing wrong with making money. We live in a capitalistic country.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to come from an authentic place that's, a long-term view, not a short-term view. And I think that's fundamental. And I think that's one of the things that on a subtext comes across in our shows is that, we're genuinely looking to serve both the attendees and the vendors. We never exploit either one of them ever, ever, ever. And I think that that's key.
You say when I talk to you, even at a show, or I'm talking to you right now, I pride myself on trying to have a futuristic look of how I look at things. Yeah. I'm looking beyond 12 months, beyond 15 months,
sure, on
what could possibly be out there. You come across to me as a person that does the same thing.
Yes.
How did you develop that trait? Is that natural? It's almost natural for me since I was a child to think like that.
Yeah.
But when I talk to I'm asking you this question because when I talk to some people in the hobby that could be vending or that could be setting the show up, one of the phrases that is my biggest pet peeve in the hobby is cooking someone. So, right. And when I come in your show, I'm seeing a community, someone that's thinking long term about what they want to contribute to the space. Can you just talk about the need for that and why is that so important to you?
Well, look, we're in a hobby that really needs people of ethics, and there's a lot of opportunities for people to exploit other people, through naivete or just misleading them, and it's it really hurts the hobby, and I can't tell you how frustrating it is to see any vendor taking advantage of the knowledge gap between themselves and a collector.
Yes.
And I think it goes back to what you said about having a long-term view. If everybody is looking out to make a cash grab right now, imagine this. Imagine a vendor rips off a collector and sells them something that maybe they misled them on.
Yes.
And they made an extra $100 off that person. Doesn't matter. And well, first of all, that collector might end up leaving the hobby, especially if it's a new collector. Somebody getting ripped off is not good, and it's just, I don't know how that vendor sits with themselves, in situations like that. But imagine that collector sticks with the hobby and time goes by. You're going to now see that collector again and again and get it shows. Guess who's never buying from you again? That collector's not coming back to you as a vendor because they remember that you ripped them off a long time ago. And how many bridges can you burn? It just doesn't make sense to me, being short-term minded in anything you do, because things will come back to bite you, and and it'd be much better to plant seeds of positivity with people than to exploit people. And, I apply that to, again, I'm a vendor. So I apply that to me when I'm buying and selling cards. And I apply that to me as an event organizer, in terms of how I treat, both vendors and attendees.
So there's something people find out more about you. Do you send cards off for grading? And if you do, 'cause I know you do more vintage. If you do, who do you submit to?
Well, for myself, because I'm a vintage guy, I use SGC and PSA.
Okay.
Pretty much exclusively. I just had JSA authenticated a 1951 Yankees ball for me.
Okay.
Beckett does a lot of our shows. So I love Beckett. I've used them for a few things, but they were only things that only Beckett would grade or authenticate.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Beckett. I've loved Beckett since I was a kid as a brand and as a company. But obviously, as a vintage guy, SGC and PSA are stronger for vintage cards.
So let me ask you this, because I just want to get your opinion. I know in the hobby, we're talking about vintage. There's been the cleaning of some vintage cards. What are your thoughts on altering vintage, modern, whatever? And when I say altering, not trimming edges, things like that, but on removing stains, tape, things like that. Well, just in general, so people know. What do you think about that?
Well, I haven't really thought about it much because I don't tamper with my cards.
I didn't think you. I've seen what's at your table, and I didn't think you did.
No, of course not. And I understand that the prevalent topic right now is whether or not it's okay to use chemicals or things like that to clean a card. Obviously, everybody brushes off cards and gets lint off of them, and if there's wax on them, like old cards have wax, right? If wax is on the front, that comes right off. You can rub it and it comes right off. Obviously, the back of a card, it actually stains the paper. Mm-hmm. And I understand that there are a couple of companies out there who know how to remove stains, either from wax perhaps, but maybe from other type of staining. I'm not aware of how they do it. I heard a recent interview with PSA where they talked about how if people use chemicals to alter the card and remove the stain, that you don't know if 5 or 10 years from now that stain could resurface. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the primary reasons why they frown on that type of thing, because it might be removed from the very surface, but if it's down inside the card, it could resurface. Mm-hmm. And that's not cool. Imagine buying a card that's graded an 8 or a 9. You're thinking, okay, I got this great card. And 5 years from now, you pull it out of the closet and you realize, wait, this wasn't there. This wouldn't have had an 8 with this stain on it, Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm certainly against it for all those reasons, because of it's basically short-term misleading the grading company and long-term potentially harming a collector who thought he bought, a high-grade card, but it ends up it's got a bad stain on it.
Well, PSA took a stance recently with a Jackie Robinson card, decertified the card, and then put statements out to let people know where they stand. And that
I get it.
Yep, I can get it as well.
And I'm with them on that for those exact same reasons.
Let's find out more about you as a collector. I want people to know, walking away from this, that you're engaged in the hobby. You're in there. Talk about some stuff that's in your PC, some stuff you have really enjoyed collecting over the years and you take pride in.
Well, I've always been, I don't know how this happened, but I started collecting in the 80s. And even as a kid, at the time I was collecting Wade Boggs, Roger Clemens, Mattingly, those were the guys back then. And I don't know what it was, but I just became really enthralled with even more vintage stuff, Mickey Mantle, Roberto Clemente, Koufax, Rose, Nolan Ryan. All these guys were the guys that I, ended up really enjoying as a collector. And I gravitated mostly to Roberto Clemente. You know, he was the guy who I just became enamored with.
Yeah.
And, you know, in fact, when I was in college, I even had his 1955 rookie card. I had a giant poster on my dorm room wall. And it's probably, you know, out of sync. You know, at the time, you know, kids were into it, you know, that were into collecting. We're all into Griffey Jr. and stuff like that, which is great, you know. But, you know, for me, I was looking at the older stuff even then. So, you know, most of the stuff that is part of my personal collection is older stuff like that. And in fact, I actually collect really high grade commons, really high grade. And, you know, it wasn't long ago I bought a 1964 set that was missing. It was missing a few cards. And then there were a lot of cards in there that were mixed grade. Some were really nice and some were rough. And because I collect old commons, I'm able to upgrade and trade cards out. And I already had a lot of them, which is really cool.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Another question I want to ask you, modern day baseball. You look at Shohei Ohtani. What are your thoughts on his game and how his career is progressing?
Well, Shohei is, you know, kind of in a league of his own these days, you know. I'm not really deeply into the modern cards. I obviously I'm not naive about them. I understand what's going on. My biggest concern about modern cards is that, look, I understand economics a bit. So when I see the demand is so high for modern cards that it drives up the prices to unsustainable levels, even of the highest caliber guys.
True.
So, you know, my concern is for collectors in the long term that they buy into the hype of a moment and get stuck with cards that maybe don't hold their value, where, you know, there's certain athletes that will remember them in 20, 30, 40, 50 years. We're going to remember Tom Brady. We're going to remember Patrick Mahomes. We're going to remember Mike Trout. You know, we're going to remember Ohtani. But each generation only has a handful of players that are at that level that have sustainable value. And my concern is when, you know, people jump onto a bandwagon and buy into a card that, you know, goes through the roof because of a guy goes 4 for 4, you know. And just my concern is for the collectors who jump onto bandwagons too aggressively without understanding that that whatever they're buying is not going to be worth more than a Hank Aaron rookie card. It's just not long term. It's just not practical, you know, for, you know. And again, I'm a little biased because I'm a vintage guy, but you can look back even to other eras and find, you know, big star players and go back decade, go back and look at Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter is a sustainable investment. Griffey is a sustainable investable player. But, you know, there's other players who are Hall of Fame players. And, you know, look at guys like Biggio, you know, and Bagwell. I mean, what are their rookie cards worth, you know? Now, granted, they're made in the junk era. But there's even cards that are more recent than that and a little bit older than that are Hall of Fame players. But if they're not the top tier, if they're not household names, you know, my concern is people are investing in them as if they will be.
That is true. And then we see cycles, right? We see cars come out, they blow up in price and popularity, and then they settle. And then a lot of people become disgruntled because it didn't work out the way they thought it was going to work out.
Right. And, you know, so I mean, look, I'm interested in the collector doing well. And I understand the wheeling and dealing and the buying and selling and buying someone when they're hot and figuring out the timing of when to get out. And, you know, my concern is the buyer that buys at the top, you know, and gets hurt. Now, hopefully that same buyer is getting hurt by one card but making money on another card. So if they're the person that's the flipper and they're doing that, well, hopefully they end up net positive. You know, but still, you know, my concern is, you know, with the long-term sustainability of the hobby is, is collectors making wise choices long term.
Now, earlier we talked a little bit about autographs, and I know you have some autographs in your collection. You talked about a older ball that you had. What's some other stuff that you have in your collection that is autograph based, baseball, bat, whatever?
I don't do a lot. I don't do a lot of autograph stuff. I get a few things, but they're selective. And I like team sign balls if they're historical. Like I recently had a 68 Mets signed ball, team ball, and that was the year before the Miracle Mets. Mm-hmm. And it also had a rookie Nolan Ryan and a rookie Tom Seaver on it. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty cool ball. Yeah. So for me, it's about what gives me the feels, because I'm a collector. So I get into things that I think are really fun, like the Yankee ball I got recently, which was ungraded or unauthenticated. I got it, it was from a guy who had it for, 50 years or more. And JSA authenticated and a Mickey Mantle rookie signature on a 51 Yankees ball.
Oh, wow. And
they also won the World Series that year. Mm-hmm. So that's a really cool, for me, you see how I get lit up by it? Like,
oh, yeah.
I'm a genuine, I just think that's so fun, and to me, that's, if it gives you the feels, then that's what you should be doing.
Machado says here, Machado watches the show a lot. Thank you, Machado, for being here. Card shows in Seattle. Okay, now we need an NBA team back in Seattle. There's been talk of that, Dan.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can only do the card show part, though. I can't help with the NBA team, but I'll do my best for card shows, and then hopefully the NBA team will follow.
Yeah, Machado says, have y'all seen the Pete Rose sign baseball? Sorry, I bet on baseball. Yeah.
Yes. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, Pete signs a lot, and I live in Vegas, so Pete often mm-hmm. does signings here at one of the casinos, and I think I'm glad he's having fun with it.
I came years ago and saw him and got some autographs, got a few items autographed from him when he was down at Field of Dreams.
Yeah,
years
that's
ago.
Right.
Yeah,
and Caesars. Yeah,
and it was real cool because you had a chance to sit by him and talk with him, and we talked sports and stats and. We talked about Darryl Strawberry. We talked about Michael Irvin, a lot of people that he's known for years, and that was a real cool experience.
Yeah, FD, I love that. That's one of the cool things about autograph guests. Mm-hmm. If you have a chance to chat with the signer, and if it's someone you're personally interested in, mm-hmm. then that's a really cool opportunity. The challenge, though, oftentimes with autograph guests is if it's a prominent signer. I mean, at the low end, they're charging $30, $40, and at the high end, they're charging hundreds, even 1,000 and up for really prominent people. And the crazy part is you can go on eBay. Let's say somebody's charging $100 for an autograph. Then you got to pay to get it authenticated. So now you're in it for $150, and then you can go on eBay and buy that same autograph for $29.99, and it doesn't make sense. So my concern is with the collector that is trying to make those decisions. And again, that's another part of my reluctance to do autograph guests. I just don't think it's a good investment. Now, for the experience of meeting, for example, you're going to always remember that for the rest of your life, having met Rose. Now, the stuff you got autographed from him, you might have lost money on, but you'll have that experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Machado asked a question here. He says, thoughts on F1 in Vegas? Dan, did you go see or get any feedback when it happened? Plus thoughts on F1 card market.
I thought the F1 race being here is fun. I know I can speak for a lot of locals, though, who were very frustrated with the traffic congestion and roads being closed and stuff like that. I wasn't here when it happened. In fact, we were running a show in Pasadena, and I think we're going to be doing another show in Pasadena the same week as F1. So it's one of those things where it's a huge thing. It was a big deal. I hear that the F1 card market is strong. I'm sure as F1 keeps doing big events like this, I'm sure it's going to grow. I can't speak firsthand on the F1 market other than what I hear from other people.
I always tell people, if you have 2020 cards, you're winning with F1. That was the first year they really came out.
Yeah.
I know I have some friends personally that are really strong in F1. They love it. Sure. They watch it. They stay up late get up early to watch. So I think it's a sport that's always going to have some pizzazz to it. And as we bring it to Miami and as we bring it to Vegas and more places in America, you'll probably have more fans that are involved in it or follow.
Well, that same thing applies to soccer. Soccer is exploding in the States, and certainly Messi coming here is a big deal. I think for the collector, I think the values of soccer cards have really, really grown here and started to reach a broader appeal. And I think that'll continue as well.
Very true. Very true. So tell everyone more about what dates are coming up and where Front Row Card Show is going to be.
We've got a big show coming in Pasadena next week. It's May 18th and 19th at the Pasadena Convention Center. SGC will be at the show, so they'll be there to accept submissions. Market to Mint will also be there accepting submissions to other grading companies as well as comics. Greg Morris Cards will be there. Pristine Auction will be there. It's going to be a really strong show. Pasadena is a great show, and anybody that comes out there, and I know you've been there, we're going to have a really strong crowd, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're giving away a lot of prizes. We give away swag bags the first 200 people each day, and thousands of prizes. And then on Saturday night, we'll have trade night. So that'll be a lot of fun as well. After that, we're going to be in Phoenix. That's June 15th and 16th in Phoenix. SGC will be there. JSA will be there. Pristine Auction again. And also I want to say that Ultra Pros has also sponsored all of our shows, and we give away all kinds of free Ultra Pro stuff to 400 of the attendees. We're back in Vegas July 13th and 14th. SGC will be here as well as Beckett and CBCS. And and frankly, all the other same ones are always here. Pristine and Greg Morris and Ultra Pro. And then it'll be our first show in Seattle, August 17, 18. It'll be our first show in Seattle.
Very cool.
And by the way, Beckett just told us that they'll be there. So Beckett will be at our Seattle show.
And when they come to your Seattle show, do they grade on site just so people know, or do they take submissions and then send it back to the consumer?
Generally, they take submissions, but you can do that in person, which is great. So you save yourself shipping, and then you also save yourself the risk of it being lost on shipping. Yes. And then in addition, you get the personal attention of them helping you with your submission. So if you need any help with your submission, or you want any help with which things should be submitted, and what are your thoughts on that, you'll have a person there to help you and walk you through it. So that's fantastic. I will say that Beckett is considering doing on-site grading at our next Vegas show.
I thought it was coming up. That's why I asked.
That'll be in July.
Okay. And your Vegas show, where is it held in Vegas?
Our Vegas show is at the Rio, which is a fantastic location. We love it for a number of reasons. Number one, it's a big space on the ground floor. It's easy to get there, and it's easy to park. Lots of free parking, and frankly, it's where they held the World Series of Poker for a lot of years. So everybody knows where the Rio is. It's easy to get to, and it's just got a lot of good qualities that we enjoy. And frankly, our shows there are getting pretty huge. So,
do you know? Have you ever had someone from Fanatics come and walk your show?
Yeah, EJ comes to a lot of our shows.
Okay. Anyone else from the team?
You know what? A high up from Fanatics came to our last show in Vegas, but I'm sorry, I don't remember his name.
I would think so. Dan, I'm just going to tell you, like I said before, your environment is different, and I would think that they would want to check that out. And I've seen Fanatics people at many other shows, and I would think that they will come walk your show to learn, look, see, feel that.
Yeah, what? We run great shows, and I hope that doesn't sound too cocky, but we genuinely run good shows, and we're very proud of it. We work very, very hard. We don't phone it in. We have a really strong team. We work hard. We create a great experience for attendees, and in fact, everything after that takes care of itself. Like, sponsors approach me people that want to work with me reach out to me to work with our shows. And, it's one of those things where if you do a good job, good things come back to you. And that's proving to be true. So as we keep growing and keep running great shows again and again and again, and proving that we do a good job and that our brand Front Row Card Show is strong, and as more and more people get to know us, more and more good things keep happening. And I think that's, it's not a secret really, just do a damn good job, and, good things happen. And, I think it's just from working hard.
I agree with you, sir. Machado asks, free parking is rare in Vegas now. Thank you. I need to, he made a statement. I need to hit the show. Never been.
That is so true. It is so that's one of the reasons we've avoided doing a show directly on the Strip, is because parking's so expensive. And, it's a deterrent for attendees, number one. And number two is, even if they're coming, if they pay $30 to park, that's $30 less they have for the show, right? So there might be a card they want to get, and they're $30 broker. So, we'd much rather them, have full pockets when they come in the show.
Well, Dan, I need to have you more as we go forward to talk more about the Front Row Card Show. Definitely around the time when Seattle comes, to talk about what's going on in Seattle and help you promote that show in any way I can help.
Thank you. We're excited about Seattle. We are really excited. I think there's a huge opportunity up there, and
so too, sir.
And I we're going to work our butts off to put on a good show, and I think the Pacific Northwest, really deserves a good show, and we're going to bring it to them.
Well, Dan, keep doing what you're doing, man. You don't need me to say that. You put on great shows. You have a good team. People are enthused. You have good vendors. I think a lot of the principles, me personally, just walking your show in Pasadena, and I pay attention to a lot of things when I'm in the show. It's a lot of principles. This is why I asked you about fanatics that walk your show, other people that walk your show, that other shows could learn from.
I hope you also noticed we've got wide aisles in our shows.
Yeah, you do.
Our aisles are wide, but then they're also packed. Yeah. So our view is, let's keep the aisles wide so people can walk in all directions. And then we also then try to pack them. So I think, we don't have narrow aisles and, it looks crowded.
No, you don't.
We've got wide aisles and we pack them.
I'm a big guy. I never bumped other people. I never had to say excuse me much. I can move around. If you were at a table looking at a card, I can move around you and still have visibility of what's on that table. I didn't have any issues with that. Machado says, Dan, any way we can help to promote the shows, please let us know. Thank you for keeping the card show alive.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's, we're very grateful for anyone who helps us spread the word and let people know about our shows, because we're trying to get new people into the hobby, and frankly, new people into our ecosystem. So once people experience Front Row Card Show, they usually come back, and that's really, I think, important to build a community of people and plus you'll see your friends there. You'll come to our shows quarterly, and every time you come, you'll see FD, you'll see some of the vendors. We always have new vendors coming in and out as well. And then you'll meet new people, but also you'll get to see your friends there. So, hopefully, Front Row Card Show is also a place of community.
Well, what we're going to do is take some clips out of this interview. We'll repost them. And then I'll make sure I keep an eye out for flyers and things like that. And Machado and I and others can get that word out on social media, just to help make sure that people are aware of when dates are, what a venue is going to be, and what Front Row Card Show is doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that, FD.
Yes, sir, Dan. Dan, I appreciate you, man. I think highly of you. I think you do great work. And like I said, I was thoroughly impressed this weekend when I saw a member of your team take the time to talk to me and explain to me some things about the show, and actually listen to, just be a really a proactive participant in the conversation that we was having. And I think when you see people that work for a team and they show the attributes that you show and that I've seen at your show, it just all connects to me.
You know what? Thank you again. And we're just grateful to have such a strong team. I mean, our team are really good people. And for us to have the team that we have, we're very grateful for it. And I appreciate that you recognize that.
Yes, sir. Well, I would appreciate you being here. But before you go, you saw the intro. We got to get you a minute. I want to ask you, Dan.
You don't have to ask me. I'm rolling with FD.
Bro, I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much. Front Row Car Show. Go check them out in Pasadena next weekend.
Great, thank you. We'll see you all in Pasadena, May 18, 19.
I'll be in contact with you, sir. Yep. Thank you very much.
Good stuff. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.